Hi everyone! Today's topic is all about plant tissues. In our previous session, we have already discussed plant cells. And basic knowledge on plant cells is important in order for us to better understand topic on plant tissues as well as auxiliary topics in plant growth and development. I am Dr. Lorelyn Turnos from the Department of Crop Science, College of Agriculture, University of Southern Mindanao. Plant cells, these are the basic unit or fundamental unit of all living things, and these are made up of many parts which are called the cell organelles, which perform a specific function. Group of cells are technically known as the tissues. So what are tissues? Tissues, these are collections of similar and dissimilar cells which perform a specific function also for the plant body. And group of tissue, these are technically known as the organ. So this organ, for example, in this illustration, we have the root as an example for the plant organ. This organ is composed of many tissues. So in the roots, the tissues in the root is known as the root tissue. And this root tissue is composed of many cells, which is known as the root hair cells. So in short, the group of the root hair cells is joining together to form a root tissue, which is grouped together to form a root. So these organs are structures of the plant that are composed of at least two or more tissue types. And different organs of the plant work together to accomplish a common purpose in the plant. And these are called the organ system. In plants, we have two organ systems, the shoot system and the root system. Shoot system is composed of plant organs which are located above the ground or above the soil. So these include the leaves, the stems, the flowers, and the fruits. And when we say the root system, this is composed of the organ of the plant, particularly the roots, which is located below the ground or below the soil. So group of systems is known as the organism. So in short, without a single cell, the occurrence, the development, and the maturation of an organism is not possible. When we say plant tissues, this can be classified into two. We have the meristematic tissue and the permanent tissue. In our succeeding slides, we will be discussing the characteristics of these different groups of tissues. And when we say meristematic tissues, we have three types based on the position or their location on the plant. So we have the apical, the lateral, and then the intercalary meristem. But when we say the permanent tissues, it is only subdivided into two groups, the simple and the complex permanent tissues. Under the simple permanent tissues, we have three types. We have the parenchyma, the collenchyma, and the sclerenchyma cells. And then for the complex tissues, we have the xylem and the phloem. So basically, the functions of each of these tissues will be discussed later. When we say plant tissues, it could be categorized into two, the meristematic, or also known as the growing tissues, and we have the permanent tissues. So in the meristematic tissues, these are composed of the cells which are actively dividing, or they are composed of the forever young cells in which they have the capability to divide actively throughout the life cycle of the plant. But when we say the permanent tissue is composed of cells which are no longer actively dividing. Hence, they have a specific role or task on the plant and they can no longer divide. When we say meristems, these are also of many categories. So based on the position or their location of the plant body, we have three categories of meristem. We have the apical, the lateral, and then the intercalary meristem. And when we say based on the nature of the cell giving the meristem, we have the primary and the secondary meristems. So for the apical meristem, it is located at the tip of the shoots or tip of the roots or tip of the buds. So as long as the meristems are on the tip portion of the plant, it is considered as the apical meristem. And when we say lateral meristem, they can be found on the lateral side of the plant, on the side of the stems or side of the roots and the branches. And when we say the intercalary meristems, these are usually found at the nodes of the plants. The nature of the cell giving the meristem, we have of two types, the primary and the secondary meristem. So this primary meristem or the meristematic tissues under this category is composed of cell which helps the plant grow in length or vertical growth. Meaning to say they help the plant grow up towards the sun or go down towards the soil. So in short, this region or this meristem is mainly responsible for the increase of the shoots, increase in length of the shoots and the roots. But for the secondary meristems, these are composed of the cells which helps the plant grow laterally, or meaning to say the girth, increase in the girth of the plant, increase in the lateral side of the stem, the branches, as well as the roots. So how do plants grow? It is of course based on the function of this meristem. So we have the primary and the secondary growth. When we say primary growth, it is more on the length, increase of the length of the plant, which gives rise to the primary tissues. So here, the meristems involved in the primary growth are two, the apical and then the intercalary meristem. But when we say the secondary growth, it is more on the width or the diameter of the plant. So it is increasing the stem or the width of the stem, the roots and the branches, and then the meristem which is involved on the secondary growth is known as the lateral meristem. So here this slide shows us the different position or location of the apical meristem. So we have of the meristems. We have the apical meristem, it can be found on the shoot here. There are also apical meristem on the roots. At the tip portion, so tip of the shoot and the tip of the root. So the growth here is known as the primary growth. And then we have also the lateral meristem. So these lateral meristems, on this side, we can see here the increase in the width or the girth of the plant, which is basically the responsibility of these types of the meristem, of the lateral meristem. So the lateral meristem is also of two types. We have the vascular cambium and the cork cambium. So for the intercalary meristem, this one, we can find it in the node part of the plant. So the reason why the lengthening of the nodes or the lengthening of the internodes increases, that is because of the intercalary meristem. So another illustration for the different position or location of the meristems in the plant. For the apical meristem, again, this causes the primary growth, the lengthening of the plant, the increasing in length of the shoots and the roots of the plant. And because of this apical meristem, there is the production of new leaves and the new flowers. And when we say the lateral meristem, this causes the secondary growth. We need to say the widening of the plant, the increase in girth, the increase on the lateral sides of the plant. And it produces the barks of the trees. Primary growth here, again, it leads to an increase in the length of the plant. So for the roots, increase in the shoots and the roots. And this is the primary growth is due to the activity of the apical meristem as well as the intercalary meristem. So here, this is just an acronym. The SAM or the SAM stands for the shoot apical meristem, and the RAM stands for the root apical meristem. And this one, this cell, the apical meristem, they form the protoderm, the ground meristem, and the procambium. These are also under the apical meristem. So on the later slides, we will be discussing this one. And when we say apical meristem, it is the growing points located at the tip, always at the tip of the stems and of the roots. Here, intercalary meristems, these are found at the nodes. The length of the internode increases due to this meristem. The stem elongation of the grasses are also due to the presence of the intercalary meristems. And here, it is also located between the mature tissues. Example is the base of the nodes in the grass or stem. Okay, for the lateral meristems, these are the region of the cell which are composed of the cells which are found at the side of the stems and the roots. So we have the main function of the lateral meristem is to increase the girth of the plant or the diameter of the plant. It is of two types. As mentioned earlier, we have the vascular and the core cambium. So this vascular cambium, this is composing the secondary vascular tissues, or meaning to say the secondary xylem and the secondary phloem. And then the core cambium, this is producing the outer part. So we have here the illustration for the cambium. We have the core cambium at this side and then the vascular cambium. So the xylem and the phloem are located here on the vascular cambium side. For the sapwood and the heartwood, we have here the inner portion. This is the dead part of the wood. So this is known as the heartwood, which comprises majority of the stem. So majority of this one is known as the heartwood. And then sapwood, this is living, the outermost portion of the woody stem. So this is where the transport of the water and nutrients are taking in the plant. Okay, to summarize the differences of the apical meristem from the intercalary to the lateral meristem, let me show you this slide. So for the positioning or the location of the meristem, these are here, at the tip of the roots and the shoots, this is the apical meristem. At the internode or the base of the leaves of the plant, this is for the intercalary meristem. And for the case of the lateral meristem, again, it is located at the lateral surface or the side of the stems, of the branches, and of the roots. And because of the fact that these meristems are located differently on the plant, of course, it is expected that they have their specific functions on the plant. So their specific roles on the plant are as follows. For the apical meristem, it is responsible for the increase of the height of the plant, the increasing the roots and the shoots, the length of the roots and the shoots. For the intercalary meristem, it also contributes to the increase in the plant with the growth of the internodes. And in the case of the lateral meristem, it is here, it increases the thickness or the widening of the plant by increasing the diameter of the plant. So there is the increase in girth and the diameter of the roots and the shoots, of the roots and the stem is again the responsibility of the lateral meristem. And to summarize the differences between the primary and the secondary growth, we have this slide. Again, pag sinabi natin growth in length, it is always the primary growth, the function of the primary meristematic tissues. And then when we say growth in girth or the diameter, it is the secondary growth. The apical and the intercalary meristems, they are composing the meristems for the primary growth, whereas the lateral or the secondary meristems, they are involved in the secondary growth. The meristems under the primary growth are clusters of undifferentiated cells, whereas in the case of the secondary growth here, these are the cylindrical meristems. And here for the location, it occurs in the regions of the new growth of the plant. However, in terms of the secondary growth here, it occurs in regions of a woody plant where primary growth has stopped or has ceased.